Okay, so we have a reading passage 1, and finally we have a fairly easy passage to do. Let's take a look. Immediately we see 9 of these gap fills, which is great, and then just 4 true, false, not givens. So it's the most common format for passage 1, some gap fills and some true, false, not givens. Sometimes these are 5 or 6 though, and that's what's nice. This time there's only 4 of these and 9 of these. Okay, let's get going. First thing that you're going to do, scan. What are you going to scan for? You're not going to scan for this. Maybe early history tells you that it'll be at the beginning. Cinnamon will be everywhere, that's the thing. What you're definitely going to scan for is these 3 things over here. So let's go and find those quickly. So there they are there. That's quite easy to find. Of course, don't just stop. Continue to scan because Middle Ages was there again. Alright, now before we go and find each one of these, let's take a look at the grammar. Can the grammar help us? Added to, it'll be added to something, but will it be single, plural, or uncountable? Single countable, plural countable, or uncountable? So this can be plural countable or uncountable. And that's probably the most common answer for these gap fills, either plural countable nouns or uncountable nouns. But it still helps us because it means that we don't need to look for single nouns. Again, same thing, because they don't say used to show so it's going to be plural or uncountable. Same thing again over there. Now this one could be anything. You can just test. I often just test with a singular noun, a person's tree. Can you have a person's tree? Yes, you can. This is not about this noun, it's about this person, this single person. But you can test. Can you have a person's coffee? That's uncountable. Yes, you can. And then can you have a person's trees? Yes, you can. So this can be anything. Doesn't help us there. Doing that same test, just I use coffee, tree, and trees, and test it with all 3 of these, all 3 of them on all of the questions, and you'll see if they're going to be single, countable, or plural, whatever. So this again is that. Now this, it's a bit tricky because it could be grown in a place. So I would just leave that again, and they took it to, again, that's going to be a place. You should also, when you're looking at these, have a guess. For example, this one, they used something to bring it to the Mediterranean. It is cinnamon. This, if you can have a guess, they used some kind of transport. They used ships, or they used cars, or whatever. And these 2 grown in, this could be grown in gardens, or it could be grown in a place. And this also a place. Take a look at those. Anyway, so that you should do pretty quickly, and then we can just start. Now when you're scanning, this one will be a little bit difficult. Scan for 2 or 3 at the same time, just so that you know that you're not reading too far. So added to, show something between people. But we know that we can stop when we reach ancient Rome. Added to and show something between people. This is quite easy really, because we know now there's 2 answers in here. And we're looking for plurals or uncountables. So added to and show something between people. This is quite easy because that's show, and among lovers and friends is between people. So there's an uncountable noun, quite straightforward. I would have gone for that one straight away. And then we want added to. Can you see added to? This is the second point, so we don't need that anymore. Look at the both and the also. So those are introducing those 2 points. Please notice these. That gives you the structure of this whole thing. So this first answer is going to be in there somewhere. There's point number 1, point number 2. We're looking for countables or plurals. There's only 2 there. And I guess people and bodies. But added to and mixed with are the closest. So there's our plural. So oils and friendship. A plural countable and an uncountable. Sweet smell, and then we'll stop at Middle Ages. So in ancient Rome, and we'll stop over there. Sweet smell, can you see it? It's just vocabulary. And it's vocabulary you should know. I mean, pleasant, you know the word pleasure. It means something nice, something positive. And I don't know if you know, but scent means smell. So sweet smell is there. So what else did they say? It was used for its sweet smell at. Again, we're looking for plural. Mourners attending funerals burnt cinnamon to create a pleasant scent. So mourners are the people attended the funerals. I hope you know what funerals are. So it was used for its sweet smell at funerals. It's the only real possibility there because the mourners is people. It's a good idea to find that. And then was an indication of a person's and known as a treatment for something and other health problems. So see if you can find kind of all of those. Added to meat, we're here. Used to flavor food, particularly meat. So we're going to be after that. Impress those around them. What did we want to see? Indication of a person, something, and health problems. Indication, I can see it, I'm going to leave it. See if you can see the synonym for the word indication. I don't know if you can, but there's health benefits, and it was thought to cure various ailments such as indigestion. Ailments means health problems. So let's take a look at that one, because that's just this one sentence over here. And this one is a lot of sentences. So let's see if we can finish this one. Take a look at it. This and other health problems. So it's a common structure. You can say apples and other fruit. So we know that this is just going to be an example of a health problem. And they give it right at the end there. Various ailments, various health problems such as indigestion. Uncountable. Right, then we want to go back and find this one. An indication of a person's something. See if you can see an indication of. Somewhere in here. Oh, no. Somewhere there. Indication is there. A sign of. An indication of the wealth at his or her disposal. An indication of a person's wealth. But if you found that difficult, let the grammar help you. We were somewhere over here. Where are the plurals and the uncountables? Could have been there or there. And all of these others are singles. So you couldn't choose those. So it's obviously not spices, and it's sign of wealth, indication of wealth. Right, grown in. The merchants and the traders. Let's find Mediterranean. Merchants, traders, Mediterranean. Grown in. So we know we're over here. There's merchants, Mediterranean, traders, Europe. Right, so we're also somewhere over here. We want grown in. Where were they grown? They were grown in something. Now, this could have tricked you. They often do this. They put, you see, the keyword is actually over here, but then they've put a similar keyword before. I've seen them do it a lot. And that in can also trick students. So students will want to say grown in demand, but it doesn't really make sense. This one makes a lot more sense. They took it from India where it was grown. So it was grown in India. I often say these can help you, these small words. Sometimes they can trick you. So be careful of that. This one makes a lot more sense. The key was to not stop scanning there. Scan everywhere for grown and see this one. So it was grown in India. The merchants used something to bring it to the Mediterranean, and the traders took it to something. Plurals and uncountables. The merchants closely guarded the secret. They took it from India, where it was grown, on camels to the Mediterranean. It can only be there. And there's our plural. They used camels. Very straightforward. Just while I remember, these two words, merchants and traders, those are synonyms. It just means people who buy and sell things. Remember those two words. I've seen IELTS use these two words a lot. And especially I've seen them use it as synonyms. So remember that merchants and traders are the same thing. People who buy and sell things. Traders took it to, again, it's going to be some kind of a place. They took it somewhere. Where did they take it? This is a very easy test. They didn't even use synonyms. They just used the exact word. They sailed to Alexandria to purchase, then brought it back to Venice. It really can't be easier. They took it to Venice. So that's one of the easiest reading one gapfuls that I've ever seen. 9 marks, not difficult to find, only in 2 paragraphs, and a lot of countables and plurals that you could find. So maybe a couple of them, there might have been a couple of tricks, but it's possible, really. You can get 9 out of 9 there. Good, let's move on to true, false, not given. Okay, so of course, as usual, the first thing we're going to do, you can go and find them where, let's go and find where they are. Portuguese, 16th century, there's lots of nice scanning language here. 19th century. I'd basically just look for 16th century and 19th century. So Portuguese, end of the 15th century, I guess. So this is now 16th century, late 16th century, and 19th century is there. So as you would expect, I mean, it's quite obvious, the true, false, not given are going to be from the rest of the passage. Right, anyway, let's do our target language. Circle words, put circles around the language that you think IELTS is going to test, that the test is going to balance on, rest on. I'm going to do it quickly, so you might want to pause the video now. Okay, so that's what I've identified as the target language. They weren't super easy. This one was obviously quite easy because it's just larger, smaller. Was it larger, smaller? But these were kind of about time. Of course, IELTS will test those as well. As soon as, was it immediately or did it come later? Was it throughout or was it only in a beginning or in the end? Then this one, there's no real clear target language. And usually when that's the case, then it's on the verb. So I would say, did they maintain it during this whole century or did they not? IELTS is never going to change this to 18th century. They're never going to test that because that's a really junior level baby true false kind of question that you would expect to see in junior school, in primary school. IELTS true false not given are always going to be a bit more difficult than that. So I would put it on that. Now with true false not, if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go and watch my true false not given video. Now one thing I want to warn you about with true false not given, they often start with a difficult one, and it's the same over here. Did they have control throughout the 16th century? And it's somewhere over here. It's not here. This is just talking about how about the original people and what they did before the Portuguese came. This is where we're looking at. But it's a difficult true false not given because it's not just on one sentence, it's on both of these. So actually I'm just going to skip it and come back to it later. The Dutch took over the trade as soon as they arrived in Ceylon. Did they take it over immediately? The Dutch arrived at the beginning of the 17th century. And then in 1640, they broke the Portuguese monopoly. So it took them 40 years when they overran and occupied their factory. It took them 40 years to do it. So it wasn't as soon as. If it was as soon as, it would be in 1601 when they arrived. So it wasn't as soon as. It was 40 years later. So that must be false, because it's not as soon as. Did these trees produce larger quantities? We're going to scan for, what will we scan for? Find the sentence trees and wild trees and maybe quantities. Of course, Dutch as well. So it's this sentence over here. That's where we see Dutch and that's where we see wild trees. They began cultivating their own trees to supplement the diminishing number of wild trees. So this is diminishing number of trees. That's not what we were looking for. Did these trees produce larger quantities? There's nothing there about larger. So it's quite straightforward, that one. That's a not given. Then these are the two more difficult ones. The spice trade, it's maintained its economic importance during the 19th century. By the middle of the 19th century, remember we're looking for spice trade. This is all about 19th century. Can you see spice trade? There is spice trade over there. The spice trade overall was diminishing in economic potential. Maintained means kept the same. So what they're testing here is, do you know if maintained and diminish is the same or different? Maintained means kept the same, diminish means decrease. So no, the spice trade decreased its economic importance. It didn't maintain it. It didn't keep it the same. So that's F. So that actually helps us because I'm quite confident about these, and that means that this will be true. But let me show you where it is, because they won't have 3 falses and 1 not given. This is all about the 16th century, and they developed a monopoly in the trade. That's probably the target language. You should learn this word. A monopoly is when somebody controls a market. So, and it was for the whole of the 16th century that they had this monopoly. So the throughout is there overall. That's why this is a difficult question. They're not comparing one word with one word. They're comparing one word with 2 whole sentences. So yes, again, the first one was a bit difficult, but yes, it's true. Great, so if you can get a passage 1 like that in your test, then you're quite lucky. I think 11, 12, 13 out of 13 is completely possible with these. Let's see what they've got for us in passage 2.